This art lesson practices observational drawing, the review of several elements of art, and introduces children to the artwork of Yayoi Kusama. There are two ways to have our paper: landscape or portrait. For this next project, we will have our paper in the landscape format, or laying down as I sometimes call it. Then the first thing you always do is write your name and your class code. Please write your name and class code in the upper left-hand corner and make it large enough so I or someone else can read it. Also write your name and class code in the center of your paper. You'll find out why later. So double check you have your name in the left-hand corner and in the center. Then you can flip your paper over and you're ready to begin. Begin by looking at the object in front of you and breaking it down into shapes and lines. You want to draw the object as big as you see it in front of you. So make sure to draw light until it's right, as you may need to erase if it's too big or too small. Notice how I'm using my pencil. I'm lightly touching the surface of the paper, and I'm blocking out the large shape of the object. Ask yourself, what lines do I see? Are they straight? Are they curved? Are they bumpy? Are they zigzagged? Also ask yourself what shapes you see. Do you see organic or geometric shapes? Do you see some geometric shapes that then you could add some other shapes to give you the correct shape of the object you see? Make sure to always look at the object you're drawing, not just at your paper. Look at the object and then draw. As you can see, if you draw light, you can always erase and then sketch again. Let's speed things up a bit, shall we? Great job, artists! Now next, we need our messy mat under our drawing, as we will begin to go over our pencil lines with black marker. Remember, we put the messy mat under our paper so the marker doesn't bleed through and stain the table. So carefully go over your pencil line with the marker. Take your time and make sure you're outlining or going over your nice drawing with bold black lines. Make sure to put the cap back on your marker, and then you can begin erasing the leftover pencil lines. If you drew light, then this should be no problem. Please make a pile of all your eraser rubbings and then put it in the rubbish bin. Do not wipe it onto the floor. And there you go, finished. Using marker, pencil, make sure your cap's on, you have your lovely pumpkin. Great job, artists. You just completed your first still life of the year. To paint our pumpkin, we will be using poster paint. This paint is great. It's a little bit thicker and will cover our pumpkin. Open the cap and squeeze out a small amount of paint. You always can get more, so go with less. We'll also be using the glaze brush again because it's wider and it will help us cover the pumpkin. No need to use water, and begin painting your color onto your pumpkin. Because we'll be cutting the pumpkin out, you can actually go a little bit outside of the lines, as you see here, but make sure the inside of the pumpkin is completely covered with your color, leaving no white spots inside the pumpkin. Make sure the paint is smooth and evenly coated across your entire pumpkin. Great job, artists! Next, you will take a piece of paper and write your name and class code in the upper left-hand corner. This piece of paper will be our background. Flip it over, and then you will begin painting the background. We will also be using poster paint for the background as well. Take a little bit of paint. Remember, you can always get more. Some paints are watery than others, so be careful when you start to pour. And again, we'll be using the glaze brush for maximum coverage. For the background, we will be using a little water. So have a water cup ready, as the water, just dipping it in the brush just a tad, will help make the paint go on smoother and thin it out a bit so it doesn't go on too thick. Make sure you're getting all of the corners and the edges. It's okay if it gets on the table, as we will wash them before you leave today. Again, you don't want to leave any white spaces on your paper to give it a solid background for your pumpkin. Let's speed things up a bit, shall we? Once you're finished, you will bring your wet background painting to the drying rack. Great job, artists! If you have a lot of paint left on your palette, you can bring it back to the paint station so someone else can use it. But if not, then you can begin cleanup. So use your brush and a bit of water to start rubbing the paint off of your palette. Now, remember to be careful with the brush and not rub the bristles too hard, but lightly use the brush, rubbing it on the palette to help remove the paint. You might need to turn the water on a little bit more to help wash away the paint. As you can see, most of it is off, and I can just use my hand to rub any areas that need an extra bit of help. Then you can begin washing your paintbrush. Give it a good hair wash and run the bristles under the water while you gently rub the hairs. Make sure you watch to see if the water coming out of the brush is clear. Once you're finished, make sure that you change your water as well. If you're using black or a dark color, you might need to rinse your cup really well to make sure all the excess paint is washed out, and then fill the cup halfway for the next person. Make sure to turn off the faucet. Put your paintbrush back in the bucket, handle down, hair up, always. Then you will dry your paint palette. Always use the towels on the drying horse to use for drying palettes, brushes, or for cleaning the table. Make sure the front and back is dry before you put the towel back on the drying rack. Remember to put it through the slots and make sure it's flat and hanging so it dries for the next person. Then walk your palette over back to the paint station and put it back on top of all the clean and dry palettes. You will begin by cutting out your pumpkin. So take some scissors and cut along the black line around your pumpkin. When cutting, be careful, as you want to do a good job, nice and neat, and turn your paper instead of turning your hand and the scissors. This makes it much easier to cut. Again, turn the paper so it's easier to cut. Let's speed things up a bit, shall we? Your table tub has the glue in it. Notice how I have the glue pointing downward. That's so the glue is closer to the nozzle and comes out easier. So when you're ready to glue, take your pumpkin, your liquid glue, and your background. Flip your pumpkin over. That's where you'll put the glue. Unscrew the nozzle and you will put a small amount along the edge or near the edge of the pumpkin. Don't put it too close to the edge or all of the glue will squish out, but leave a little room and close to the edge so that way the edges don't lift up. Then do a big swirl in the middle. Notice I have no puddles. Put the cap back on, and this is just enough glue to secure your pumpkin on your background. Carefully get your background ready and place your pumpkin right in the center of your background. Give it a good pat down. You might have a little bit of glue squeeze out. Just wipe it with your fingers. Make sure all of the edges are flat. You might have a little glue on your fingers. That's okay. Just a little water will rinse them and get that glue washed away. We are using the artwork of Yayoi Kusama to inspire our pumpkins. So looking at her artwork, she uses small, medium, and large size dots on her pumpkin. So when you're using oil pastels for your dots on your pumpkin and the background, use the chart. If you've used black, dark blue, or purple, you will use white, whether you're doing dots or lines. If you use the other colors, you will put black oil pastel on top. So if your pumpkin's orange, you do black dots. Start with your pumpkin. Look at the color and figure out if you're using white or black. So for yellow, white or black? Black. Start with larger size circles and dots in the center of each section, just like Yayoi Kusama. Go all the way down, pushing hard so the oil pastel is nice and dark. Then you will do smaller dots next to the larger dots. As you go to the next section, use the curved lines to guide your circles. Notice how my dots kind of curve, just like my lines do. And notice in Yayoi Kusama's pumpkins, she has some of the dots are hiding behind the line. So you can do that too. That shows things are in depth or perspective. Even though it looks quite flat, we can still show that things are in the front and in the back. So larger dots in the center and smaller dots on the side. Again, notice that I have a curve following the curved line on my pumpkin. Curved. Now, let's speed things up a bit, shall we? Finished. Notice I didn't do the stem. It's up to you whether you want to put dots on it or not. Great job, artist. Now you're ready for the background. We will be using oil pastel for the background as well. Using Yayoi Kusama's artwork to inspire us, we will use lines and shapes for the background. Look at your background. Will you use white or black? I will use white. Using your oil pastels, start by drawing a zigzag line. Then from that line, start to branch off new lines and connect them to create different geometric shapes. Rhombuses, triangles, diamonds, squares, and rectangles. You're creating a geometric web of shapes. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just draw a line and see where it takes you. You will fill the entire background with these lines and shapes. It's a bit fun. See where you can connect to create the web and where you can create different shapes by taking the line and letting it lead you. Now, once again, artist, let's speed things up. Voila, your Yayoi Kusama inspired pumpkin. Great job, artists.